Now more than ever, your ability to get listings is more critical than ever in our business. We all know those that have the listings control the market. What we're going to do, I got Price Rainer with me today. What we're going to do, we're going to go through and talk to you. We've been here before. After thousands of listings taken and sold between the two of us, we're going to share with you the process that we look at on a daily basis to make sure we're maximizing all of our opportunities with listings. All right, so Price, this is really, when you and I were talking about this is the stuff when we were at a stage in our career, two different times. When we were starting, we wish we'd have known some of this stuff. When we were at a place where we had a really good market and things seemed easy and we maybe lost our focus, these were the things, the basics and some of the things we wish we would have stayed focused on to get more listings. So let's just talk about this. And as you and I have talked, there's really, we're going to talk about some P's, the P's of listing. We're going to talk about the presentation. We're going to talk about the product, the price, the people, and we're going to talk about the plan of action. So let's start really with the presentation. Let's talk about going into a listing presentation, going for the first meeting with someone. What are some of the things, and we're going to get into each of them more individually as we go, but what's the preparation you have to go into that initial meeting?
Well, the preparation, pre-meeting preparation is let's just take watercolor, for example. Okay. I would look at watercolor from a historical perspective just to see what pricing is done in general over a period of time, whatever you choose. I would look at that and be armed with the facts as to what pricing and the number of sales have done, and then drill down maybe specifically to the little sub areas in there. There would be the phases 1, 2, and 3, and 4, so I could talk about that as well. And then I would look at the particular subject property, try to find 4, 5, or 6 nice comparables, and compare and contrast those with my subject house to begin to get an understanding as to, one, how that property relates to the others in terms of finishes, fixtures, beds, bath, and then how it relates in terms of price. Those are the things I would do in preparation for the first meeting.
Yeah, and we're going to talk a little more about what we take into the meeting, but it all starts with getting the preparation as far as knowing and understanding of what the price and the value is.
Yes.
And so from that standpoint, this is not necessarily, this is my personal, when I go into a presentation, I've got a range. If I haven't seen the house, I'm not going to be able to know what that looks like, but I can get an idea, in this area, a house this age with this many bedrooms is going to sell in this range. And then obviously I can get a little more detailed. And we'll talk about the fact of whether you do a 1 or a 2 time listing presentation in just a minute. But really the preparation is just getting general marketing, getting general ideas of that, and then being prepared when you walk in that you've got some information. If you in a lot of cases, we're going to go into places where we already know the information, but it's getting in a way that we're not just saying it, we can show them that. Yes. Sometimes people got to see it before they can be it. You know what I mean? So it's just that preparation portion. And then we're going to let's go into some of the P's of just simple economics. Typically, I know you said this a number of times to me, it's price, it's people, and it's product. Let's start with a couple of things. Let's start with the people. We're talking about people. We're really talking about who is it that the potential buyer is for this property. So let's talk about that as you're thinking about this, and it's also the listing, the person who's listing it. What type of person are they? Are they numbers driven or what? Talk about that as far as what are you evaluating?
Sure. Well, you've just basically said it. It's the people, and right now, we're dealing with people that are buying homes largely for a second, third home. A lot of people now that they may have started out looking for a second or third home, but now maybe their primary home.
Right.
So that is a huge. Are becoming quite a large percentage of our sales. So, those are some of the people that we see. Sure, there's also the investment side of that, where someone may buy this to rent it or whatever. But those are kind of the 3 main buckets, if you will, of buyers that I try to think about when looking at a property.
And then, so from that, let's move on then to, once we've kind of identified the people, who the person is that we're potentially going to list this for, who the potential buyer is. Now let's move to product, because that really, it sets the stage for everything from marketing to, presentation to pricing. Yes. What do you look for when you first go to the house? Are you taking notes as you walk through? What are you doing?
Yes, yes. I'll walk through a home. You know, say the first time I show up to a house, you know, I want to sit down with them in the living room or the kitchen and have a conversation, and just begin to introduce myself and the company and some of our services, and get to know them a little bit, build some rapport initially,
Right.
and then I'll ask them if they would walk through the home with me, and we just walk through and look for, you know, we're taking kind of an inventory, a stock and trade of what we have there. So we're looking at both good things, and then we're looking at things we can improve.
Right.
You know, if there's been a leak somewhere that we might could fix, or if we need to paint something somewhere, what those things look like. And I'm also trying to make a list of those items as well as we walk through, because it's difficult to remember those things once
Right.
we leave. So I try to get that all down while we're going through the property.
And we're going through and looking at it from a presentation standpoint. Is there furnishing needs to be removed? Are there
Yes, thank
items
you.
that need to be removed? Also, when we're looking at the product, we're looking to see how does it compare to our comparables. So we're making some of those notes as we're going through there. I've always told people, when I'm going through it with the people, when they're walking me through the first time, when I first meet them, I say, tell me what made you love this house and buy this house. Because a lot of times when we get to this place, the same type of person typically, now their life may have shifted. It may have been that this couple bought this house, now they've got 3 grandchildren instead of 1 and they need an extra bedroom. Or maybe they love this place because it had the pool, but they want to be closer to the beach. So now we're identifying, okay, who is that person in that we're there? And when we do that, that kind of helps us. Now we move into kind of the pricing portion of it. And I'm curious because I've seen it done both ways, and a lot of times it depends on that person. Are you going into pricing on that first meeting, or are you saying, now that I have gathered all the information, I'd like to digest this and come back? Which one do you prefer?
Well, sometimes it depends on how that meeting goes. I always show up with a price and
Right.
generally a range.
Yeah.
So I'm prepared to have that conversation. But sometimes I feel like with a particular personality type that really takes me through their home, and I can tell they're very emotionally tied to the home, I may wait and send them the pricing later. But typically, if it's somebody that I feel like is kind of ready to go,
Yeah.
and I feel like I can advance the conversation and maybe have them sign the listing agreement while I'm there,
Right.
I'll give them that number at that point, because I want to advance the conversation, because I want to get that listing signed as quickly as I can.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing with that is I mean, if somebody's ready to sign and they're like, yeah, that makes sense to me, have your listing agreement and put it in front of them.
Yes.
Go ahead and get the property listed,
Yes.
and go from there. One of the things from a pricing perspective too is let's talk about it. Some people will say, you know, we're different times in different parts of the market where, gosh, I don't want to take an overpriced listing. Or other times they're like, you know, well, maybe the market's at a place where we would take something and be a little overpriced. Where we are in the market now, what is your suggestion on some of those things?
Well, right now, where we are, you know, so far 2020 through the end of July compared to 2019, the average price of a home is up 20%. The average price is just a tick under 1.1398 is where we are now. So with that type of movement in price and the demand that's in the market, this is one of those times where I would be willing to take a slightly overpriced listing, maybe even one that's overpriced quite a bit, just to test the market for the reasons that I just explained, and the movement there's been in price, and also the limited amount of supply compounded with the overwhelming amount of demand.
Right.
You know, it's hard to quantify what somebody might pay for a property that ticks the boxes that they need ticked, you know,
Right.
and in particular, you know, an A property,
Yeah.
something that is a primo location, great flow, great floor
Right.
plan, well done home. You know, there's so few of those that are coming to the market, it's really hard to get a handle as to what someone might pay for those.
Yeah, and I would agree. And I've used this sometimes. If we're using, you know, a market that's moving, you know, it's crazy to say. I try to be conservative typically, but if we're using a 12%, the market's moving 1%
A month.
a month.
Right.
So when we're looking at that, you know, if we're signing a 6-month listing agreement and you're 4% over, if the market continues at the pace it is, you're going to be right on the number in 3 to 4 months.
Right.
I always try to prep people, you know, and I say, listen, there's times in the market where we're at a place where we get surprised lower than what we think and higher than what we think.
good.
Right now, we're getting surprised to the high side, which is great for a seller. I always try to prep them though. If we're going to price it where I don't see the pricing, I say, listen, I'm willing to do this. I believe in the house, and I believe the market's going to pay a premium for this house in this environment. But I will tell you this: if we're 1 month in, and we've not had offers, we've not had a ton of showings, the market is screaming at us without saying a word and telling us it's not going to yield that price, I'd like the opportunity to come back and show you the newest comps and see if it might be in the plan for us to have something scheduled that if we need to, not if we want to, if we need to, we would adjust the price down. I think that's a way to handle some of those.
Oh, I think it is too. I actually take that and I'll write that into the listing agreement
Absolutely.
in the additional terms so we memorialize
That's
that.
right. If we don't have an offer by, price will be reduced.
Yeah,
And then
that's
it's
right.
just a natural, hey, per our conversation, we're doing this.
Yes.
All right, so now we're at a place where we're getting a little more comfortable, and I agree. I mean, there's some people too, depending on the property, you can tell by the person too. I mean, if that listing is a person that moves a little slower, more methodical, wants more numbers, and is more number driven, typically, almost by the personality type, I can tell whether this is a one and done or this is a multiple time coming and presenting. What do you look for as keys to figure out whether it's a one and done? I know you mentioned about people ready to sign, but what is in the personalities?
Well, you can tell. Say if there's someone that is, call it a doer. High D, very driven type personality type. You typically want to be very efficient in their time. So they're going to say things like, how long do you think it's going to be till we can get this sold? And they're going to be giving you action type statements.
Right.
And those type people, I will use soft closes with them. I'll say, well, have we addressed all your concerns here? They say yes, and I say, so, are you ready to move forward?
Yeah.
Something like that. Or is there anything else I need to get? Kind of soften that statement. If they say, yeah, we're ready to go, then I reach into my bag or my folder and pull out the listing agreement and begin to work through that with them to go ahead and get that done at that time.
Right.
And as you say, if they're more of a amiable plotter type personality type where, they say, well, they don't answer that in an affirmative direct type fashion, then I'll yield, and I know I need to do more rapport building and things like that. So I'll try to schedule another appointment or a phone call after that to begin to do those things and softly move them down the road and almost let them close themselves.
Makes complete sense. And we can kind of see if they're wanting additional information. I mean, if you've been there, you can tell by people's body language. You can tell by anything what's going on in their thought process. Sure. And also, when we're doing this, we're getting this, and now we've kind of identified the people we're dealing with as a potential lister as well as the potential buyer. We've looked at the product, seen if there are any adjustments that need to be made. We're now getting, and we're now looking at pricing. Now it comes to the plan time. Okay, so from a plan perspective, let's talk about some of the things, I know, some of the times the things we miss out on makes us the best. Yeah. Some of the times on listing agreements, and we were just like, man, I thought I was going to get that listing. Let's talk about maybe some of the things that, as you and I have talked about in the past where we've, some of those times when you've had loss, you learn more. Let's talk about some of the things that maybe you've gotten more focused on based on the fact that maybe you've lost some listings due to some things that that agents were doing.
Sure, yeah, I'd love to. And I did just recently lose one that I thought I had. I was leaving to go out of town and went by and visited with a customer who had seen some of the work we've been doing and called me over, had a great meeting, was there for an hour and a half at a house of watercolor. We did, did some market overview conversation, talked about his property and talked about some things that needed to be done to, get the house to where it would be, in very good shape for us to sell. We talked about the pricing. He agreed that we were, in the ballpark of where he was thinking. We talked about other properties that he had. We talked about what he's going to be doing after selling this home. Had a very productive meeting. I left there, all signs said, man, you've got a very good chance of getting this listing. But he did say he was going to meet with, another group or two, after me. So, about a week goes by and I get a call and he had said he'd gone with another group. So, I was not real pleased with that, but I took a moment, paused, and then sent him an email and said, hey, could you tell me if there's anything I could have done better? And he was, he's great. I really have enjoyed my time with him. He said, Price, you did a great job. At the time you left, I was willing to sign with you. Can't really say anything you had done wrong, but I'd like to share with you some of the things the group we decided to go with did and really won us over. And that, to me, as you've said, in this loss, if you will, I've learned so much about what others are doing and how to sharpen myself going forward. And some of the things they did is they came over and had that initial meeting, just like I did, kind of went through that. And then that afternoon, they sent him a list of the items that needed some attention and a list of service providers that could do that for him. And then they followed up with him after the fact to invite him over to their office to where they could talk a little bit more about their objections, potential objections, and begin to look at the market and look at comparables a little deeper. And they had an opportunity then to kind of talk about the plan, about what are they going to do, and talk through some of that, and begin to crystallize what that would look like.
Right.
Next day, they met him with his wife and went and walked through 3 or 4 of the comparables that they had seen the day before, so they could have a conversation about, how these homes match up to his house. And I just thought I smiled to myself when I, heard them read that, because I said, what a great plan they had there to take him through and begin to show him those homes in real time, so they could have very productive and robust conversations about how his home relates to those in fits, finishes, etc., beds, bath, all that, and also pricing. So they could remove some of the emotional aspects that may present a problem down the road as they move forward to nail that pricing down. So they had that conversation or had that time together at those homes, and then went back with him to his house to really drill down on listing price, expectations, and their plan. And going through that process, enabled them to win that listing.
Yeah, absolutely. And I will tell you this, I've lost it sometimes because I know my plan of action. I've been doing it long enough. I don't think about the fact that I have not laid that out for people. I had, when I was selling the most, when I was listing the most properties, I had what I called my listing launch formula, and it was something that I just had a detailed plan of, here are the steps. And I had a checklist. Okay, here's the items we will be doing. At any time you want a copy of this and see what date we did this, here's the items, here's where we'll advertise, here's where we'll market, here's the pieces, and we've seen this where sometimes people will, we've got all of this details, we've got the plan of action, but if we don't share it, the person who shares and they understand it, and a lot of times it's seeing it again. So let's talk about bringing marketing materials, showing some examples. What do you do there and what works best?
Well, as you said, I think that having a plan of action of what we're going to do, that's the very best thing you can do. And then have examples of those, whatever your plan is. No one has to have the exact same plan, but to show up with a CMA, to show up with the online avenues that we're going to use to expose it, the database we're going to send it to. If you can show up with a postcard you're going to send already made up, as an example, to show them, and all your online items in the queue, ready to go, when you can tell them, once we sign this listing agreement, all I have to do is hit play here, active here, and these things are live next day. I think that is very important, where we are currently with to really show them how we use technology, and how we're ready to go. That is, that's a differentiator from us and most people. When they say, we're gonna, you say, I've done this. And I know that these things will work, and you can demonstrate to them, whatever your list is that it's worked for you in the past, and what that is. It's just operating with it. It gives you confidence, and it gives them confidence as well that you are the right choice. And where there's confusion, if you don't share those things and they don't understand, that confusion promotes indecision, where confidence increases the likelihood someone's ready to move forward.
Absolutely. I think it's so critical right now. We know the lifeblood of our business is listings. If you can get to a place where you understand and prepare yourself, for the presentation, you understand the product, you understand the price, and you understand the people you're dealing with, and you have a plan of action, you're absolutely going to get the listings that you're supposed to get. So from this point forward, what I would say is when you're going into it, understand the competition is getting better and better, which is great for us because good competition makes us better. So from that standpoint, just focus on those things. If you'll focus on those things, I promise you're going to get the listings you're supposed to get, you're going to get the sales you're going to get, and it will lead to additional business. Thanks, Price, for the insight. And if you guys have any questions on any of this, give Price a call, give me a call, and we'll talk to you soon.